Hello everyone and welcome back to Jacqs. Thanks for joining me today for part 5 in my Wedding Memory Planner series. This series is part of a design team project for Country Craft Creations, and I'm using Here Comes the Bride collection from Country Craft Creations, and those supplies will all be listed in the description box below. In the description box, you will also find the tutorial project sheet, as well as any SVG files that I have created to go along with these pages and designs that I have created. And they will link you out to my Ko-fi shop where you can pick up today's information as well as all of the other information from this series. Today we're going to kick off with the honeymoon section, and as I've mentioned before, I will be adding the divider label off screen because I've already shown how I'm doing those in part 2 of this mini series. So if you again haven't seen it, I do have a playlist and that will be listed down below as well. So we're going to work on the back side of the divider. You're going to need one piece of pattern paper, and this will measure 8 3/4 by 11 1/2. And that will be our base piece for the divider. Now today we're creating another fun element. So it started out with this idea of being able to create a present, as you see here. And what happens is this is going to get glued down to the page on 3 sides. This will pop up and out. You have an area for a photo here. You'll have an area for a photo on the back. And then we have some doors that open up from our present, and you can add photos here, here, and here. What a fun way to document the honeymoon. Now, if you don't use this to document the honeymoon, you can certainly use this to put photos of the location where you're going or activities that you're going to do there. It's a fun way to document without actually having all the paperwork. Clip out your photos, put it here, make your schedule right here in this layout that we're creating today. Now, in addition to this fun, large present, we're also going to be creating 2 smaller ones. Now, I designed these to where you can fit a credit card in there. So if somebody did want to put a credit card in there for you or a gift card, they certainly could preload your wedding memory planner with lots of goodies. You can also put your own in there in case somebody gifted you that and you want to make sure you don't lose it. You can put it right in there. So we will be creating 2 of these. Now, of course, I created an SVG file because I try to make it easy for all of you. So in my cut file bundle, you'll not only find the SVGs to create these projects with cutting machines, but you will also have templates to use for those that don't have cutting machines. You'll have all of the images for the box as well as the large one. But since this particular piece is more than 8.5 by 11, I don't have this in there, but that's why I'm showing you how to put it together today so that you can take the pieces that I do have, merge them, and create exactly what we're creating today. In addition to these elements, we also need some gold foiling, right? So these are our trim pieces, and then I created this bow. And this is part of the cut file bundle as well. We have little baby ones and a big one. So these are all the pieces that we're going to use to create this section. Let's go through the measurements. I'm going to start with the trim pieces so I can get these out of the way because they're small. So I created one large bow, and this measures 5.5 inches wide, and it is about 2 5/8 inches tall. If you don't want to use the bows that I'm providing in the bundle, you can certainly use anything that you have in your stash. I have a next size bow, and this measures 2 3/4 inches wide and about 1 1/4 inches tall. And the last one is 2.5 inches wide, 1 1/8 inches tall. You'll also need some trim pieces, and I use gold foiling, and these measure 1/2 inch wide by 6. You're going to need 2 of these. Then you'll need 1 each that measures, oh, it's slightly over 2 3/4. So I would say 2 13/16 by 3/8. And this one is 3/8 by 3 13/16. The reason these measure a little bit odd is because we're going the width of our present. And I wanted to make sure that it was covering the sides of it. So you could certainly take a long piece, put it across here, and then cut it. That would be a lot easier to do. Now, you're going to need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 12 by 6. You're going to score at 3 and 9 on the long side of your cardstock. Now we can go ahead and fold these over and burnish. Now the way these fold, the doors should fit right next to each other. There should be no overlap of the doors, okay? It should just open like that. Now, if you're wondering how these are going to stay closed, I created a design that looks like a T, and we're gluing this in a specific way that it will go over the present, but still look like it's tucked in the back side of the present, right? You can still tuck underneath it like that, and it will hold the doors shut. Plus, we have other items in front of this, so don't worry. So for your large present, you're going to need 1 piece of pattern paper that measures 12 by 6. I'm going to cut this with you, but I'm not sure how much of a border I'm going to leave on the present. I don't really think it needs a border around it. It might look funny. So I'm just going to cut 3 inches. Okay, 6 inches, and then you should have 3 inches. Just trimming off a little bit. So the larger piece goes in the center. Now here you could certainly put a border around that. So if we wanted to, we could cut this down because we're opening up to this. Okay, so it's going to look like this and then open up. And I think we'll do a photo mat here and then on the sides. Okay, so I've trimmed down these pieces just a little bit on one side so that they would lay flat when you fold over the panels. So in the end, this comes up to 5 15/16 if you want to know the exact measurement. Now these I cut down a little bit as well to just under 3. If you can see that there. But I'm going to glue these on and then see if I need to trim on the side. So let's go ahead and glue these down. And like I said, I'm not making a border around this. It's not, that wasn't my idea. I just didn't think for a present that was needed. Now, I don't think I cut my white cardstock for my photo mats, so I'll do that off screen, but you would cut them to be the same size as these. Okay, these are 3 by 6. Trimmed down, of course, just a little bit. Let's make sure we got these going in the right direction. Oh, that's cute right there. Okay. I'm going to start from the inside here. There was just something about a stripe on a present that I had to have. Now you're going to take your 2 largest trim pieces, and we're going to add these right in the center. One on each of the doors. So that's the base of our large present. Like I said, I'm going to add my white cardstock here, and probably one in the center for photos. And in the cut file bundle, there'll be one of these little toppers that's large. You need to cut out one of these. It has a score line right here, and you fold over and burnish. So just make that on color cardstock. Now, in addition to this particular design for the present, I did also create an extra pocket. So if you don't want to have this feature where you have doors, you can cut out one of these in color cardstock and then cut out your pattern paper for the front. Now, if you see here, it has 3 sides. So you would fold and burnish on those 3 score lines. And then your pattern paper would be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And then you can use that with the topper as well. So if you want this look, you can create it. But today, I'm creating this look. I think this is going to be super cool. Okay, so that's kind of a bonus piece. So this is the large present. We'll come back to that. In the cut file bundle, you'll also find another present or pocket piece that looks like this, and you're going to need to cut out 2 of these. Now, I'm not giving any measurements on these because 1, I'm providing a template, and 2, I'm providing cut files. The finished size will be 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. Okay, so cut out 2 of these. There's score lines on 3 sides. Fold and burnish. Fold and burnish. So what we end up doing is creating a little pocket. Now, if you notice on my design, I did leave the back lower than the front. That's so when you go to take your topper piece and put it in, it's a little bit easier, okay? So 2 of those. For these, what we do is just add adhesive to our little hinges to close those. Now, I've used double-sided cardstock, but you don't have to. It's just what I had. Okay, easy peasy. Let's go ahead and do the other one as well. Now this one may look a little bit smaller to you, but that's because this was a test version, and instead of wasting it, I'm going to use it. I think it's just slightly smaller. But these both will fit a gift card. For our smaller pockets, we're going to need our trim pieces. One is going to be upright, and the other one is going to be laying down. So you'll need the tallest piece to go lengthwise, and the smaller piece to go across the middle. Like that, okay? Let me See what I did? See, I put the long one over the short, and here I put the short over the long. Guess it doesn't matter. Gives it interest, I reckon. Very shiny. Probably blinding you guys, sorry. Now for these pockets, you want to cut out 2 of these little topper pieces. Again, they will have a score line right at the top. Just fold over and burnish. Now what I'm going to do for these is actually take the Dress My Craft slotted punch and punch on each corner so that it will actually hold a gift card. I think I figured these out so that it would work. We'll find out, I guess. Let's give it a go. Oh yeah. So see, this will fit right in here. Hello. Now, as you can see, this is flopping open, right? So the trick to this is to take and add just a line of glue here at the top. And close that down. Now, when we put this down, it goes over the present and is nice and snug, right? But yet you can still pull this out. Fabulous. I love it. Let's do the same with this one. I'll go ahead and add my glue here at the top. Just a thin line. And punch my holes just in case someone wants to use it for gift cards, or you can use it to add a photo here, photo here. But even then, you could tuck your photos down into the little slots and it would still work that way as well. So then see, this one goes down, and to put it on, you lift back and over. So cute. I love these. And now we take our little bows and we're going to add those to our little toppers. I'm only putting glue down at the bottom part. Lining it up with the ribbon or trim down the center here. See, you don't want any glue back there. Oh my gosh, so cute. So cute. Okay, we'll do the next one. Again, I'm lining the centerpiece up with the trim. It's going down just a little bit over the edge of the topper there. So cute. Now those are done. Okay, now we can set these aside and come back to the large present. Now what I've done here is I've gone ahead and added on my white cardstock or photo mats. So these were 5 by 5 5/8, and actually it's even just slightly over it. And you need 2 of those to go on the front and back of the large present topper. Now I'm going to add the decorative piece for the outside of my topper here. And this measures 6 3/4 by 1. And actually I cut it a little too short. This is actually a little bit over 1. So I think I'm going to add this and then just cut this piece down. It'll be fine. I'm using a black mirror card. Kind of like the idea of the black with the stripes. It just really looks fancy. So I'm just lining it up with the top here. So see, it's just about 1/16 inch too small. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that off. Now I haven't really been using ink for this project, but because I want this to be a black side, actually it looks okay, but I'm gonna ink that a little bit. Just going to use Ranger Archival Jet Black ink. Let's finish this off. We're going to add our line of glue here at the top. Okay, so I'm going to line this up. Now, you'll notice that I left plenty of room because once we add our glue on the 3 sides, I didn't want there to be any difficulty in putting this piece in. So I made sure there was plenty of room. And now we can add our bow to the top. Oh my gosh, look how cute that is. Oh my goodness. So as I mentioned before, the concept was to have this glued down. So in actuality, we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to leave these together. So if it's a little off center, I'm okay with that. It doesn't matter. In the long run, it's all going to be good. Look how cute this is. Oh my goodness. So this comes off. And these open up. Well, that'll be fixed. Now I'm going to have to add a magnet to the back of this, and we can just add paper over the back to cover it up. And I want to put one on the inside here. So then that way you can lift this up to open the top. Easy peasy. So now that we have this in line, and I'm not gluing this down until I know for sure I don't need to put a magnet underneath it. So that's why I haven't glued that down. Just using my basic grays here. So I want this one to be kind of up like that. So right here, right there, right in this spot. So I'm really not going to measure out where the magnets are because it could be different for all of us, but I did actually tell you about the placement. It is basically right in the center of this quadrant, okay? Okay, so I'm going to add another magnet down here just to keep the present upright and not like swinging around when, you know, it gets moved back and forth. So again, I'm adding another magnet right to this quadrant. And now I'll get a piece to cover this. So that goes there. This will, so I'm just going to hold this where I want it and flip. Okay, cool. I have it on the right side. And for this one, I'm going to put a magnet in this quadrant and this quadrant to kind of just like hold this down. Again, that will help keep this closed. Yeah, I think that'll work. I guess we'll see, won't we? Okay, when everything looks good, you can go ahead and glue down your pattern paper. Okay, let's put it together. This goes behind the present and over. So cute. And these, of course, oh, we need to cover the back. So let me get some cardstock for that. To cover the back of this, you're going to need one piece of pattern paper that is 2 3/4 wide by 3 3/4 tall. And then we just place this down onto our present. So that is the honeymoon section. Super, super fun. Now we're going to work on the vendor section. And this is actually before the honeymoon section. I kind of jumped the gun there. So we're going back to this section. And on this one, we'll add our divider label to the front, and we're going to work on the back as well. I have another interactive element for this section, and it has lots of different pieces. So I'm going to run through all of the sizing of everything that I'm using, and then we'll put it all together. So of course, the divider page is our base page. You're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock, and these will measure 4 7/8 by 11.5. Just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. 2 of those. You're going to need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. You're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. You'll need 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 7 1/4 by 3 1/2. You'll need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 9 5/8 by 1 1/2. And 1 piece of cardstock that measures 9 5/8 by 5. Now we're going to do some scoring with some of our pieces. On our piece that measures 7 1/4 inches long, we're going to put that across the top, and it'll be 3 1/2 inches tall. We're going to score at 3 5/8. Repeat that same process on our second piece. On our piece that measures 4 1/2 by 6 1/2, we're going to score at 1/2 inch on the short side. We're going to rotate it once to the right and score at 1/2 inch on the long side. And you're going to repeat that same process on your second piece. For our long strip that is 1 1/2 inches wide, you're going to score at 1/2 inch on both ends. And I like to flip mine around. Next, we'll bring in our long pieces, and with the short side across the top at 5 inches, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Let's rotate this to the long side and score 1/2 inch on both ends. Or flip it and do 1/2 inch. So you're scoring on 3 sides. On our last 2 long pieces, we're going to have the 4 7/8 inches across the top, the short side, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Do that to both pieces. Okay, that's all of our scoring. You'll have 1 piece of cardstock that we cut that we will not be scoring, and this is the one that measures 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. So now we can fold and burnish on all of our score lines that we just made. Now we're going to do some cuts. On the piece where we made 2 score marks, we're going to just cut straight across diagonally across the score line where the 2 intersect, so right here. So that when we fold these down, they meet up perfectly. And then repeat that on your second piece. And you can check them. If they overlap too much, you can make another cut to fix it. We're going to do the same kind of cuts on our piece that is 10 inches wide and has 3 score lines. So where these score lines intersect right there, we're going to cut straight across. And again, you'll see that they meet up really well. Okay, those are all of our cardstock pieces. Now I'm going to go through all of the pattern pieces. I used one of the cut apart cards, and this measures 4 by 6. Yep. And that will go with our 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. And these are going to get layered on top of each other. If you want a larger black border around this, go ahead and resize that. For our pieces that fold over like a little booklet, you're going to need a decorative front, and you're going to need 2 pieces, and these measure 3 3/8 by 3 1/4. So these will go on the front. Then you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock for photo mats. So you could use white cardstock. I'm using the shimmer paper that I've been working with just because it coordinates so well with this section. So you'll need 4 at 3 3/8 by 3 1/4. So these will go on the inside, 1 on each side, leaving about 1/8 inch border all the way around. Okay, so that's how those will work. And then here's our second one, again, 2 for those. Next, we're going to work on these pieces that we scored 2 times. And actually, I should have mentioned when we were folding and burnishing that we don't want them going in the same direction as you see here, right? These are going in the same direction. We need one in one direction and we need one in the other direction. So you would just take the score lines and fold back on them. We're going to create mirroring sides, so our 2 sides will mirror each other. That's easier to say than mirroring. Okay, so for these, now I should mention that these pattern papers were from a different paper collection, but this one right here and here are from Here Comes the Bride. So this was actually on one sheet. I think it was like this. And I just cut it apart, and I'm going to place it down like this for each of our pockets, okay? And these measure 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. So that's how those will go. For our two long pieces, I'm sure we have them currently going in the same direction. We need to rotate one of them. So now they're going in opposite directions, right? We have our hinge on the right, hinge on the left. For this one, I use the marriage certificate paper, and I basically cut off the top, sides, and bottom as one sheet. So to start with, it was 8 3/4 by 11 1/2. And then, like I said, I cut it down the center, and I cut it at 4 3/8. So this was one page, cut at 4 3/8, giving you 2 pages. The way that I cut these was so that it would cover the entire front. There is no black border on these, okay? If you want a black border, you're going to need to trim this down. I didn't want mine that way. I wanted to be able to see more of the marriage certificate words. So that's why there's no border. Now, when we open these, we're making gatefolds here. So when these open, you're going to need 2 pieces of patterned paper. Yeah, I think this one was like this. Again, this is not from the Here Comes the Bride collection. This is from a different collection that was in my stash. And these are 4 1/8 by 11 1/4. So if you wanted to cut down your piece on the front, that is the same measurement that you would use. 4 1/8 by 11 1/4. And these will go on the inside, like that, okay? Okay, so that's that. For our long skinny piece, you're going to need 1 piece of pattern paper, and this will measure 8 3/8 by 1 1/4, and that will get glued on to the top. This paper and this paper here, again, is from a different collection. I'm just wanting to make sure you know what is from Here Comes the Bride. That's the main collection that I'm using. Now, our last individual piece is a big pocket. You're going to need 1 piece of pattern paper, and this will measure 8 5/8 by 4 1/4. And that will go across the top like that. The last piece measures 8 5/8 by 7 3/4. So I initially cut this, and these measured 8 5/8 by 12. I then cut one end off, so that made my pocket cover. And then I used the remainder piece to be the back piece for our base page. So it will end up going like that. Okay? Now that I've identified all the pieces and which ones go together, I'm going to go through which ones you can glue together and which ones you should wait on gluing. So now I've done my gluing off camera to speed this up a little bit, but you can go ahead and glue on. This is going to be a belly band piece, so those 2 could be glued together. For our little pocket pieces, you can glue on your pattern paper onto the fronts of those. And you can glue on your big pocket piece. For the 2 small little booklets, you can go ahead and glue those together, but keep in mind we want one to open to the left and one to open to the right. So when we first made them, they both open to the left. Just rotate one around and add your pattern paper. Okay? For the little image that we created, this one needs magnets, and I kind of forgot. So what I've done is created a gold foil piece to go along with this so I can add my magnets. So I've already added my black cardstock to the back of this, so you have a nice little black border. So for the foil, this is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And you're going to need, 2 magnets, well, 4 in total. Boy, these really stick together. And the way I'm going to do this is it's going to be our closure for our gatefold. So I'm going to put one on one corner and one on the opposite corner, or here and here. So here and here, or here and here, whichever way you like. See, I think it'd be easier if the magnets were here, because then you can easily pick this part up. I think that would be the best way to do it. So once you have those two glued together, if you're going to add a third piece, if not, you don't have to. You could just add your magnets with these 2 layers. You want to make sure when you add your magnets that it's not near the cut part or the opening of our gatefold. Okay? Yeah. And then we can add on this piece. Okay, so now that's ready. Next, for our gatefold pieces, you can go ahead and glue on the front pieces. And remember, it covers the whole thing. But before we add our inside pieces to the back, we need to add our magnets, and we need to add our pocket pieces. So first, let's bring out our base piece and add our gatefold pieces. I think that'll be the best way to do it. We're going to add these to the side. Let's see how I did this. I think I did it to where there was a border around it, an 1/8 of an inch border. Yeah. Okay. So we're just adding adhesive to the outside of one of the hinges, and this is for the left side. Going to put this on the side, and you know what? I think I'll bring in one of the other pages. This one is done, and it will just help give me a guide about how far down I need to go. It doesn't have to be exact. I think that looks good. Just so you can see how much spacing I have there. I meant to make these as long as the base piece, but I cut them a little short initially. If you wanted to do that, you could. And if you do, it would be 11 3/4. So the black cardstock would be 11 3/4 inches tall, same width as I gave you before. Just so that you know. Let's do our second piece here. Now these will be easier to line up because we're going to flatten out this side and butt this one right up to it, just as if we were closing the gatefolds. And then flipping this under. Now let's still remain on the inside. Let's bring in one of our smaller pockets. We're going to add adhesive to the outside of both of the hinges, and we're going to place this down here in the corner. Okay? I think I'm going to try to do it all at the same time. I don't know if that's a good thing. So I'm just lining these up here together and then pushing my hinge underneath. Okay. I want to make sure the bottom lines up and the sides. And then I like to check them before I go and burnish them. Make sure it looks right. I think that looks okay. Where is my tool? We're going to repeat the same process on the second gatefold and our second pocket. Now, I didn't put household tape on our hinges because we're adding pattern paper over the hinges, and that should help your papers go in smoothly. Okay, same thing. Line these up on the edges. Now we can add our pattern paper to the inside of our pocket. The way that you're going to add this is where the pattern pieces line up together. You don't want to push this all the way into the back of the pocket like that. Don't do that. You want the pattern pieces to line up together, so then that gives you a nice clean border all the way around. See how that just flows right into the next piece? Nice and clean. So it should be matchy-matchy here with the pattern paper, matchy-matchy here. Before we move away from this side, we're going to take one of our little booklets, the one that opens to the left, and we're going to glue this down right here. So it's about 1 inch, maybe 1 1/8 inch from the top, and the same up from the pocket. 1/4 of an inch on each side. But really, you can just do it to where it looks good for you. Because you may want it to be up a little bit higher than your pocket. Kind of like that right there. How did I get glue on the inside? Oh my goodness. And actually these should match up as well right here. So again, we still have that nice border going around. Now you may wonder how these are going to stay closed if we're not using magnets. Well, when you go to put your documents into your pocket, I'm sure they're going to be taller than the pocket, so it will keep your little photo mat booklet closed on its own, plus over time it'll lay flatter. Okay, let's repeat that on the right hand side. Oh, you guys, I forgot the magnets. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I told you we were adding the pieces together so we could put the magnets on, and of course I forgot to add the magnets. This is why I hate using magnets, because I always forget to use them. So what I've had to do was try to split open my sides here, and I luckily was able to do that. How I'm going to get this in there, that's another story. I need to do this off camera So I'm going to figure that out. I'll just make sure I put this on the screen and in the guide, the project sheet, so that you don't forget to add your magnets, okay? I'll be back. Okay, I was able to get my magnets in the right place here and up here. And we are good to go. So don't forget yours, because that was really difficult. But that's how it works now. Just pops on there. And I would definitely recommend putting your magnets under the top layer and not under here. It's going to be too thick. And you need this to have really good contact to make sure it keeps everything closed. Okay, so now that that crisis has been fixed, let's continue on. So we were back inside and we were adding our second little booklet up here to the top. Now I want to make sure that I get these in the right place, so I am going to place my ruler to where it will at least be even. That's the main thing. Next, we want to add our large pattern piece. So when I add this, I'm going to line it up with the top of my gatefold. Don't go over it. You want it to be hidden when the doors are shut. Okay. Okay. You may want to dry fit this piece first to make sure that you're able to close your panels without any interference from this piece. I actually did have to trim mine down just a little bit, so definitely recommend doing that. Now we're ready to add on our large pocket down at the bottom, and all you have to do is add your adhesive to the back sides of these 3 hinges and glue this down to the bottom. Make sure it's flush here and that on the sides you're still able to close your panels without it interfering with the pocket. Now there are 2 ways that you could have done this pocket. One is when you make it dimensional. I'm going to include measurements so that you can add a 1/8 of an inch gusset on our gatefold doors so that there's plenty of room for closing it and everything. So since I've been designing this with you without a gusset for our gatefold doors, I cut off my hinges and I'm just going to glue this down on 3 sides and have it be a little bit flatter. You'll have all the measurements for both options in the project sheet. And I basically have told you all the measurements here in the video as well. It's just not as organized. Okay, so for this one, I cut off the hinges, just laying it flat down onto the base here. So again, I'm lining this up to where the pattern paper will be at the end of my gatefold door, just like we did at the top. Then when we close it, you can't see the paper. Looks good. And this goes on top. Now the belly band piece, I'm going to glue up here at the top. You want to dry fit this as well. Make sure it doesn't run into our doors. And you're just adding glue on the back of your little hinges here and placing that down. You can use the household tape trick on this as well if you want to. Now again, if you don't want this to be dimensional, you can just cut your hinges off and glue the ends to your paper. Now, before I mentioned using long tags to be our stopper for these doors, and so you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 3.5 by 8.5, and then you're going to need 2 pieces of pattern paper that measure 3.25 by 8.25, and I used the Heartfelt Creations album tags and accents. I used the 2 tag pieces, these 2. The largest on the black cardstock and the smallest on the pattern paper. And I picked that up from Country Craft Creations, so that we have a nice top border there. Now, if you want, you can put white cardstock on the back, or just leave it plain so that they could add photos back here as well. And then we have our long tags to be our stoppers. See? Works out good. Now, we have our pocket down here. And if you want to kind of layer the pieces that you're putting in the pocket, you can use the belly band for one item and then have just your regular items in the pocket. And then you get kind of a layered effect here, another way to separate items in the wedding planner. So that is this section. Love it. Okay, now we are on the last section. This is the other section, the one that whoever uses the planner can add a label here specific to their needs. Great place for calendars and things like that. So you add your divider label to the front, and we're working on the back side. You're going to need 1 piece of pattern paper that measures 8 3/4 by 11.5. That's been our standard size for the papers. Now, if you look, I used this particular paper, but I didn't like the flowers being at the bottom because then you couldn't see them when we put on our stacked pockets, which is what we're doing for this section. So I took the paper and I flipped it, and it looks just as good this way as it did the other way. So that's how I'm going to lay that down. Now for the stacked pockets, I'm using Michelle's video and creating these like she did. So I'll list that information of where it is in her video on the screen here and in the project sheet. So you're going to need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 8 3/4 by 3, and one that measures 8 3/4 by 3.5. We're going to take these pieces and score the ends. So on both pieces, you're going to score at 1/2 inch on each side. So 1/2 inch, 8 1/4. 1/2 inch, 8 1/4. Now on the larger of the 2 pieces that measures 3.5, we're going to turn this to the short side and score it at 1/2 inch. We'll take our scissors and again cut diagonally across the intersection of the score lines. Before we fold and burnish our ends, we can add our pattern paper to this. So you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 7 1/4 by 2.5. And if you want to add a layering piece, which is what I'm going to do, you're going to need 2 pieces of colored cardstock or specialty paper that measures 7.5 by 2 3/4. And do the same to the second part. We can glue our pieces onto the cardstock. Now we can fold and burnish on all of our score lines. So the one with 3 hinges is going to go on the bottom of our page. The one with hinges on 2 ends goes on the inside of the bottom piece. So we're going to go down about maybe 1/2 inch. I think that's what Michelle did. I don't remember. It's about, what is it, 5/8. Let's see what it looks like. Really all depends on how you want to place them. Actually, I kind of like that. So let's do 5/8 to 1/2 inch. What have I got here? Just add glue in the area up to the end of the bottom hinge and fold that over. Now the tricky part here is when you're layering 2 pieces on top of each other, sometimes they could buckle. So you want to make sure you have this even and flat all the way across. Yeah, I can see that this is going to kind of buckle. See how it does? If I just fold down on this end and this end, you get that little buckle going on right there. Sometimes you have to make an additional allowance on the opposite side. So first I want to kind of measure up 5/8 so I know where that marker is. Next, I think I'm going to add an additional score line. I don't know how Michelle did it without getting buckling. Even though I watched her video, I still couldn't figure it out. So I'm just going to add another score line. It's like right beside of it. See that? Like this was the original score line and I put one right there. So let's see if that works. Now I'll line up my piece with my 5/8 tick mark. And when I fold that over, no buckling. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my glue up to the 5/8 inch mark. Line these up and fold that over. It definitely helps making that additional, it's probably about 1/16 of an inch. I know y'all like working with that. Now we're going to bring in our base piece and place this wherever we want it. I think I'll go about 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom. I'm just going to glue down the center hinge for right now. Let's see, I'm checking so I can give you guys about the right measurement. Yep, that's good. It's about 1/2 inch on each side, not exact. And I'm going to use the tape trick. And actually, I'm going to come back in here and cut these at a diagonal. I'm going to try and hold these shut like this. Fold this down. And now you have a pocket here and a pocket here. The back pocket will go all the way down to the bottom, so you'll have plenty of room for tall documents or photo mats, whichever you're going to use this for. And that is the end of creating all of our dividers. And as I mentioned before, you can create additional pieces that we have made throughout this tutorial to go in other sections, or you can create new ones that you think are missing. And if you do, I would love to hear what they are in case I might want to incorporate them as well. So that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video where we do the reveal and binding.